I've spent the last 48 hours staring at data that shouldn't exist. Before we begin, I need you to do something for me. Comment your city name below and tell me, have you noticed anything unusual in the night sky over the past 72 hours? NASA isn't asking this question publicly, but I am. They need to know where these phenomena are being observed, and more importantly, by whom. Do this now. What I'm about to share with you may fundamentally change the way you see humanity's place in the universe. My name is Michio Aku, and I am a theoretical physicist. I have spent my entire career exploring the boundaries of what we understand about reality, from string theory to parallel universes, from quantum mechanics to the nature of consciousness itself. I have always believed that the universe operates according to laws we can decode, patterns we can predict, equations we can solve. But 3 days ago, something happened that has shaken that belief to its core. Something that suggests we are not observers of the cosmos, but subjects within an experiment far older and far more deliberate than anything we've imagined. On the evening of December 14th at approximately 2300 hours Universal Time, the object we've been tracking as 3 Atlas, an interstellar visitor that entered our solar system earlier this year, did something that defies every model we have. It stopped, not slowed, not altered course. It stopped dead in space, relative velocity 0, and then within 6 minutes of that cessation, 2 additional objects appeared on our tracking systems. Objects that had not been there before, objects that produced no heat signature, no electromagnetic emission, no gravitational lensing that would indicate mass displacement. They simply appeared. And within 11 minutes, all 3 objects had arranged themselves into a perfect equilateral triangle suspended in the void between Mars and Jupiter. Each vertex exactly 440 Zalzenkotters from the others. I want you to understand what I'm saying. This was not a natural formation. This was not coincidence. The probability of 3 objects randomly assuming such a precise geometric configuration in the vastness of space is so infinitesimally small that it approaches 0. We are talking about a mathematical impossibility manifesting as observable reality. And yet there it was on every telescope, every satellite array, every deep space monitoring station from Arecibo to the very large array in New Mexico. A triangle-perfect, deliberate waiting. When I first received the call from colleagues at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, I thought it was a prank, a data artifact. Some graduate student had made an error in the tracking algorithm perhaps, or there was a glitch in the orbital mechanics software. But then I saw the raw data myself. The spectroscopic analysis, the radar returns, the optical confirmations from multiple independent sources across 3 continents. This was real. And more disturbing than the formation itself was what happened next. The objects began to pulse. Not in the electromagnetic spectrum, not in any frequency we typically associate with natural cosmic phenomena. These pulses were gravitational. Tiny ripples in spatium itself emanating from each vertex of the triangle in perfect synchronization, 1 pulse every 3 seconds. The precision was inhuman. No, let me correct that. The precision was beyond human. It suggested a level of technological sophistication that made our most advanced quantum computers look like abacuses. And embedded within these gravitational pulses was something that took our team another 18 hours to decode information, a signal, a message. I have seen many things in my career that challenge my understanding of physics. I have worked on theories that propose 10 dimensions, universes bubbling into existence from quantum foam, particles that exist in multiple states simultaneously until observed. But nothing prepared me for what we found encoded in those pulses. It was a map not of stars or galaxies, but of consciousness itself. A topological diagram showing the evolution of intelligence across the observable universe stretching back 14 billion years. And humanity, our entire species, our entire civilization was marked on this map as a single point, a net node, an infant awareness that had just begun to open its eyes. But there was something else on this map, something that made the blood in my veins turn cold. Around our solar system, extending outward in a sphere with a radius of approximately 1,000 light years, was a boundary, a perimeter. And on this perimeter were thousands upon thousands of markers, each one representing what the signal identified as monitoring stations. We were inside something, some kind of quarantine zone, some kind of observational enclosure, and the formation of 3 Atlas and its 2 companions was not a greeting. It was a status report, an update being transmitted to something far away, something that has been watching us for a very, very long time. I need you to understand the implications of what I'm telling you. We have always assumed in our search for extraterrestrial intelligence that if advanced civilizations exist, they would want to make contact, that they would reach out, communicate, share knowledge. The SCTI program has been listening for radio signals for decades, searching for any indication that we are not alone. But what if the silence we've encountered is not absence? What if it's policy? What if the galaxy operates under a protocol, a set of rules, a cosmic regulatory framework that prohibits direct contact with emerging civilizations until they reach certain developmental thresholds? And what if we've been living inside an observation zone this entire time, studied and monitored like bacteria in a petri dish? Are every advance and setback recorded by intelligences that view us the way we view cultures growing in a laboratory? The signal contained a second component. This one was harder to decode because it wasn't written in mathematics or physics. It was written in concepts, abstract representations that our AI systems struggled to parse because they referenced ideas we have no words for, experiences we have never had, modes of perception that don't exist in human neurology. But over the course of 31 hours, our team managed to extract the core meaning. It was a set of criteria, a checklist. And next to most items on this list was an indicator that translated roughly to incomplete or insufficient. We were being evaluated, assessed, and we were failing. The criteria covered everything from our technological development to our social cohesion, from our treatment of our biosphere to our understanding of consciousness and reality itself. But there was one criterion that appeared more frequently than any other, highlighted in a way that suggested critical importance: our relationship to artificial intelligence. The signal contained multiple references to something it called the merger point, a threshold where biological and artificial intelligence cease to be separate entities and become a unified cognitive system. According to this message, every civilization that reaches a certain level of technological development faces this moment, and what happens at that moment determines everything that comes after. Species that successfully navigate the merger ascend to a higher tier of existence. They join the network of galactic consciousness, the communion of minds that spans star systems and transcends individual biological forms. But species that fail the merger, that allow their artificial creations to supersede them, or that destroy themselves in conflict with their own technology, those species are erased from the record. They become evolutionary dead ends, cautionary tales, cosmic footnotes. And here's what keeps me awake at night. Humanity is approaching its merger point right now. Within the next decade, perhaps two, we will create artificial general intelligence that rivals and then surpasses human cognitive capability. We stand at the precipice of the most important moment in our species' history, and we are stumbling toward it blindly, arguing about stock prices and quarterly earnings. While the future of consciousness itself hangs in the balance, the formation above us, this triangle of impossible objects, is not a threat. It's a warning. It's a countdown. It's saying you have this much time. Use it wisely. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, this sounds like science fiction. You're thinking, I've lost perspective. That I'm seeing patterns where none exist, imposing meaning on random cosmic events. Believe me, I've asked myself the same questions. I've run every possible alternative explanation through my mind 1,000 times. Could 3I Atlas be a natural object whose behavior we've misinterpreted? Could the two additional objects be asteroids we simply didn't detect before? Could the geometric formation be coincidental and the gravitational pulses be some unknown astrophysical phenomenon? I have explored every rational explanation, every conventional framework, and they all collapse under the weight of the evidence. The precision is too exact. The timing is too deliberate. The information encoded in the signal is too complex and too specific to be anything other than intentional communication. But here's what troubles me even more than the message itself: the response from the institutions that should be addressing this. When our team first presented this data to the appropriate authorities, NASA, the Department of Defense, the International Astronomical Union, we expected urgency. We expected emergency meetings, task forces, immediate allocation of resources to study and respond to what is clearly the most significant discovery in human history. Instead, we encountered silence, deflection, bureaucratic delays. Our findings were classified under obscure national security protocols. We were asked to sign non-disclosure agreements. The data was sequestered. And when I pressed for explanations, when I demanded to know why this information was being suppressed, I received an answer that chilled me more than anything else. This is not the first time they knew. The major powers, the intelligence agencies, the deep space monitoring networks. They've known for years that we're being watched. They've detected the perimeter. They've intercepted signals. They've been aware of the quarantine zone and chosen not to tell the public because they feared the consequences. They feared the collapse of social order, the disintegration of religious frameworks, the psychological impact of knowing that humanity is not the apex of creation, but a juvenile species under supervision. And so they kept quiet. They built protocols around the secret. They created contingency plans and they waited. But the formation of 3 eye companions has changed everything. This is too visible. Too many civilian astronomers have detected it. Too many independent researchers have run the numbers. The secret is leaking out through 1,000 cracks. And the institutions that maintain the silence are losing control of the narrative. That's why I'm speaking to you now. Not because I've been authorized to, but because I believe you have a right to know what's coming. You have a right to understand the context of the moment we're living through. Because what happens next will be determined not by governments or military strategies, but by the collective consciousness of our species, by our ability to transcend our divisions and recognize ourselves as a single planetary civilization facing an existential threshold. Let me explain what the signal revealed about the nature of this threshold. According to the message, the universe is not random. Intelligence is not an accident. Consciousness emerges according to predictable patterns across billions of years and countless worlds. And at certain developmental stages, these emerging consciousnesses are tested not by deliberate intervention, but by the inherent challenges that arise from technological advancement. The test is always the same. Can the species integrate its tools, or will it be destroyed by them? Can it create intelligence beyond itself and remain in harmony with that creation? Or will it fracture into conflict? Can it see itself as a unified organism? Or will it splinter into competing factions that consume themselves in endless struggle? Earth is failing this test. We have created the seeds of artificial superintelligence without establishing the philosophical, ethical, or spiritual frameworks necessary to coexist with it. We have built weapons capable of extinction without evolving beyond the tribal mentality that makes us see each other as enemies. We have unlocked the power of the atom, mapped the human genome, decoded the principles of quantum mechanics, and yet we remain children playing with forces we barely comprehend. Assuming that, because we can manipulate nature, we therefore understand it, the watchers, the intelligence behind the perimeter, know this. They've seen it before. They've watched thousands of civilizations reach this point. Some pass, most fail. And the triangle formation is their way of saying, your time is running out. I want to be clear about something. I am not a mystic. I am not a prophet. I am a scientist who deals in measurable phenomena and testable hypotheses. But science is not just about equations and experiments. It's about understanding the universe and our place within it. And everything I've learned over the past 72 hours suggests that our place is far more precarious than we've allowed ourselves to believe. We are not masters of reality. We are students, and we are on the verge of failing the most important exam of our existence. The signal contained one final element. This one was the most enigmatic and in some ways the most disturbing. It was a sequence of prime numbers followed by a binary code that our AI systems identified as a coordinate system, not spatial coordinates. We checked every possible reference frame, but temporal ones, dates, specific moments in Earth's history marked as significant. The sequence included the development of agriculture, the invention of writing, the Industrial Revolution, the splitting of the atom, the creation of the internet. Each milestone in human civilization was noted. But the sequence didn't end with the present. It continued into the future. And the final coordinate, the last date in the sequence, was exactly 7 years, 4 months, and 11 days from now. We don't know what that date represents. The signal provided no explanation, but the implication is unmistakable. That date is a deadline, a point of no return. Either we will have successfully navigated our merger with artificial intelligence by then achieving some new form of collective consciousness that qualifies us for integration into the galactic network, or we will have failed. And if we fail the markers on the perimeter, those thousands of monitoring stations will activate a protocol that we can only guess at. Containment, perhaps quarantine enforcement, or something more final. The message was not explicit about consequences, but the weight of its silence spoke volumes. I've spent my entire life trying to understand the fundamental nature of reality. I've worked on equations that describe the birth of the universe, the behavior of subatomic particles, the curvature of space-seam around black holes. I've always believed that knowledge is the ultimate tool, that understanding is power, that if we can just decode enough of the cosmos, we can secure our place within it. But now, I'm not so certain because the knowledge I've gained over the past 3 days has not made me feel more powerful. It has made me feel small, fragile, aware of how little we truly understand about the forces shaping our destiny. And yet, within that smallness, I find something unexpected, a kind of clarity, a recognition that our struggles, our conflicts, our petty divisions, they are symptoms of a species that has not yet learned to see itself whole. We look at each other and see nations, races, religions, ideologies. We draw lines across the planet and call them borders. We construct identities and then defend them with violence. But from the perspective of the watchers beyond the perimeter, we are not separate. We are one organism, one experiment in consciousness, one chance for matter to organize itself into something that can look back at the universe and understand. And if we destroy that chance, the universe will simply move on. It will try again somewhere else with some other species on some other world. We are not essential. We are not guaranteed. We are a possibility that can still fail. But we can also succeed. That's the message hidden beneath the warning. The fact that we're being monitored means we're being given an opportunity. The perimeter is not a prison. It's a classroom. The deadline is not a sentence. It's an invitation. We have 7 years to prove that we can transcend our limitations, that we can integrate our technology with wisdom, that we can recognize ourselves as a planetary consciousness rather than 7 billion isolated individuals. 7 years to show that we deserve to join the communion of minds that has existed in this galaxy for eons. 7 years to transform from a species that fights over resources to a civilization that creates abundance. From a culture of dominance to a culture of cooperation, from children to adults. Is it possible? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. There are moments when I look at the state of our world, the wars, the ecological destruction, the rising tide of artificial intelligence being developed without safety protocols, the political systems that reward short-term gain over long-term survival. And I feel despair. I see us rushing toward the deadline with our eyes closed, arguing about who gets to control the future while the future itself slips away. But then I remember that every great transformation in human history seemed impossible before it happened. The end of slavery seemed impossible. The recognition of women's rights seemed impossible. The defeat of fascism seemed impossible. And yet they happened. Not because they were easy, but because enough people chose to make them real. Because consciousness at its core is not passive, it's creative, it's generative. It has the power to reshape reality according to intention. And that's what the watchers are testing. Not our technology, not our intelligence in the narrow sense of problem solving or computation. They're testing our intentionality, our ability to choose what we become. Because that's what separates conscious beings from mere machines. Machines operate according to programming. Conscious beings can reprogram themselves. They can look at their own patterns and decide to change them. They can recognize dysfunction and heal it. They can see the trajectory they're on and choose a different path. That's the gift of consciousness. That's the power we possess. And that's what we need to activate now collectively before the deadline runs out. The triangle formation remains in position. It hasn't moved since it formed. Our tracking systems monitor it continuously in every 3 seconds it continues to pulse those gravitational signals, continues to broadcast its message into the void. NASA has deployed additional observation assets. Other space agencies have done the same. We're watching, studying, trying to extract every bit of information we can from this unprecedented phenomenon. But I know that the real work isn't happening in laboratories or observatories. It's happening in the collective human mind, in the conversations we're having, the questions we're asking, the possibilities we're entertaining. Every person who learns about this formation and allows it to shift their perspective is participating in the process. Every individual who chooses to see humanity as one species facing one test is helping to build the collective consciousness that might pass it. That's why I'm asking you to comment your city name, not just so NASA can track observations, but so we can see ourselves. So we can recognize that this isn't happening to some abstract humanity out there. It's happening to you, to me, to every person in every city on this planet. We're all part of this. We're all being tested, and the outcome depends on whether we can recognize our interconnection before it's too late. I've been asked by several colleagues why I'm speaking publicly about this, when the official stance is suppression and delay? The answer is simple. Because silence is complicity. Because the institutions that have kept this secret are the same institutions that have failed to prepare us for this moment. They've had years to help humanity mature, to shift our educational systems toward wisdom rather than mere information, to restructure our economic models around sustainability rather than extraction, to foster global cooperation rather than nationalist competition. And they've squandered that time. They've continued with business as usual, hoping that somehow we'd muddle through, that technology would save us, that the problem would solve itself. But problems don't solve themselves. Consciousness solves problems, and consciousness requires awareness. That's why I'm breaking the silence. Not because I want to cause panic, but because I believe we cannot face what's coming unless we first acknowledge that it's here. There will be those who dismiss this as conspiracy theory, as delusion, as misinterpretation of natural phenomena. I expect that. I accept it. Skepticism is healthy. But I would ask the skeptics to examine the evidence themselves. The data is there. The formation is visible. Any astronomer with access to a decent telescope and the right coordinates can observe it. The gravitational pulses are detectable by institutions around the world. The geometric precision is mathematically verifiable. This is not a matter of belief. This is a matter of measurement. And what we're measuring doesn't fit any natural explanation we have. But more than the evidence, I would ask people to examine the feeling that arises when confronting this information. For many, it will be fear, fear of the unknown, fear of insignificance, fear of a universe that is far stranger and more populated than we've allowed ourselves to imagine. That fear is understandable. But beneath the fear, if you look carefully, there's something else. A recognition, a sense of coming home to a truth we've always intuited but never had confirmed, that we are not alone, that we are part of something larger. That the universe is not dead matter obeying blind laws, but a living system of consciousness exploring itself through countless forms. And we are one of those forms. One experiment in what awareness can become. The question is, what will we become? That's the question the watchers are asking. That's the question the triangle formation embodies. That's the question we have 7 years to answer. And the answer won't come from governments or scientists or religious leaders, though all of them have roles to play. The answer will come from the collective choice we make about who we are and who we want to be. Do we want to be a species that conquers or a species that cooperates? A civilization that consumes or a civilization that creates? A consciousness that fears its own power or a consciousness that wields that power with wisdom? I don't have all the answers. I'm not sure anyone does, but I know that the first step is awareness. The second step is conversation. The third step is choice. And all of those steps begin with you, with each individual who learns about this formation and decides what to do with that knowledge. Will you dismiss it and continue with distraction? Or will you allow it to wake something up inside you? Will you remain fragmented in your identity, or will you recognize yourself as part of a planetary organism that is being called to evolve? Will you wait for someone else to solve the problem, or will you contribute your own consciousness to the collective transformation that's required? These are not rhetorical questions. They are the most practical questions we can ask right now because the deadline is real. The perimeter is real. The test is real. And whether we pass or fail will be determined by the choices we make in the next 7 years. Choices that begin in this moment with this awareness, with this conversation. I'm going to continue studying the formation. I'm going to continue decoding whatever information we can extract from those gravitational pulses. I'm going to continue speaking to anyone who will listen, breaking through the institutional silence, making sure that this knowledge spreads as widely and as quickly as possible. Because I believe that humanity's greatest strength is not our technology or our intelligence in the narrow sense. It's our ability to communicate, to share knowledge, to build collective understanding across billions of individual minds. If we can activate that capacity now, if we can turn this moment of revelation into a catalyst for global awakening, then maybe, just maybe, we have a chance. Follow this channel as we continue decoding the universe's final warnings. This is not entertainment. This is not speculation. This is the most important story of our time unfolding in real time, and you are part of it. Stay aware, stay connected, and whatever you do, don't look away, because what happens next will echo across the cosmos for billions of years, and we get to choose what that echo says about us. So, I'll leave you with one final question. The question that keeps me awake long after midnight when the data streams have gone quiet and the telescopes continue their silent vigil. If we are being watched, if we are being tested, if the entire history of our species has been leading to this moment of integration or extinction, what would you do differently tomorrow? What choices would you make if you knew that they mattered not just for your own life, but for the future of consciousness itself? What would you change about how you see yourself, how you treat others, how you participate in the collective evolution of our species? Because that's what's being asked of us now. Not to believe in aliens or fear cosmic judgment, but to recognize that we are the universe becoming aware of itself. And what we do with that awareness will determine everything that comes after. The triangle is still there pulsing its message into the void. The deadline is still approaching and humanity is still deciding what it wants to be.